Finally, the day is here. Episode 1 of Let's Talk Indie, where we talk about indie games, the market for them, how they evolve, and we also do video game reviews for indie games. But today, we start at the bottom. In terms of the content, we gotta start somewhere, y'all. And today we start with how indie games and fan games can coexist with each other as part of the game environment, and how we are going to answer a question for today. The question of the day is: are ROM hacks considered to be indie games, fan made games, or neither? I'll explain my answer to that question later. I'll also be discussing my own experiences with fan games and indie games, and we'll be talking about what makes them different. So, strap in and buckle up because it's going to be a wild one. Let's get started with talking about the show notes. If you guys want more of the show notes, I will be linking them in the description below in my Google Drive. And maybe I may be doing something for Patreon or Google memberships, YouTube members, if you guys want to get in on the action. So, first we're gonna be defining fan game made and indie games. Then we're gonna be taking a look at examples. Then I'm gonna be talking about my experience. Are ROM hacks considered to be fan made or indie games or neither? And we'll be talking about the next episode after this one, which is the market competition of indie games. So let's get started. First, let's define what a fan game made, what a fan made game is, and an indie game. So very straightforward. An indie game is a game that is developed by a team and a studio that is based on an original idea and a original concept. They may take inspiration from other games they have played and make some adjustments. So that's what an indie game is. So let's recap. An indie game is developed by a team or a single person in a studio or at their house that is based on an original idea or original concept. They may take inspiration from other games they have played in the past, and they have played to make sure they can make adjustments to make sure it does not look like the original game idea. So, so like Mario, for example, they may take a concept from Mario but change it in a way that makes it their own. Now let's talk about fan-made game. A fan-made game, on the contrary, is a game that is developed by a team that is based on a game that is already out there in the market. This can be a remake of a Mario game, Sonic game, etc. Or they can use concepts, actually, while they use concepts of the original to make a game. Usually based on classic games like Mario, Pokemon, and others. So when you see something like, for example, Sonic.exe, that is considered a fan-made game, not an indie game. We'll talk about why more and later in detail. Okay, indie games like Hollow Knight is an example of a game with an original idea because there is no such thing as a Hollow Knight game way back in 1994 or some year like that. Okay, so now I would like to present to you an article. I would like to present to you guys an article that talks about some fan-made games and some indie games. And first, let's talk about the fan-made games by the gamer. This article is called 14 fan games that are better than originals. And we're going to go over some examples for today's episode. I'm not going to read the whole article because this is basically like a list of games that are presented based on the original idea. So one of the examples is Rayman Redemption. So if you played the original Rayman, this is based on that. That's a fan game made of 1995 Ubisoft. And I gotta tell you a story. I played Rayman before, but I was playing the one where you learn numbers and letters. I think that's the educational version of Rayman, also known as edutainment games. So Rayman was one of them that I played in the past, and now I played the original Rayman in terms of the numbers, learning numbers. And I remember that I was playing at my uncle's house. I think it was PlayStation 1, if I remember correctly. That game was a blast. I would play it again for you guys, but just for the fun of Rayman, not the fun of learning numbers. So this is a fan made game. We have Castlevania Simon's Dynasty, based on Castlevania. We also have Pokemon Uranium. This is based on the Pokemon games. So Pokemon has fan games as well. We also have Sonic Utopia, which is based on the Sonic games. So these are examples of fan-made games. And then let's take a look at the next article, also by the gamer. And this talks about 15 best indie games of all time. We're talking about all time here, y'all. And these are the 15. So one of them should be Hollow Knight. Should be. We have Night in the Woods, a Cave Story. I was going to play this for you guys. I've heard about this one. We have Hades, Stardew Valley. I have this game. I have Stardew Valley. I have Stardew Valley of the Nintendo Switch. This is basically your farming simulator. You farm stuff, you get crops and stuff. I have this game. Hollow Knight. I thought so. Hollow Knight. I heard a lot of people talk about Hollow Knight. It's one of the best games out there. I want to play it for you guys. We have some other games that we should be considering. We have Limbo. This one I want to play for you guys. This looks cool. We have Hotline Miami. We have Undertale, everybody's favorite apparently. We have Undertale. Darkest Dungeon. Splunky. If I'm saying these wrong, I apologize. But Splunky is one of them. Let's see another one. Cuphead. A lot of people, I've heard about Cuphead. I heard it's a hard game. Braid is another one, and finally Inside is another one. So those are what you call indie games because they are original ideas made by one developer or a team of developers. Now the concept is platformer for Splunky, but the look of it is original. They take inspiration from other games to make their own. Okay? Unlike in fan games, where they use the exact same concept and the exact same mechanics from those original games like Pokemon Uranium. Okay? And I heard there's one Kaizo one. That's important to understand. So let's go back to the show notes. So examples of indie games as we discussed. We have Splunky. We have, I know I'm gonna say it wrong. Indie games include Hollow Knight. We have, we just discussed, so those were one that's one of the best ones. We have Limbo, and then fan made include from these articles. Fan made games include Pokemon Uranium. We also had Sonic Utopia and others. If you guys want to read that article, I am linking it in the show notes and in the description of this video, of this podcast episode. So make sure you guys check those out. I will not be able to give you a tutorial on how to do those until later on. Okay, indie games, you usually find them on Steam though. Okay, now I want to talk to you guys about my experience of being an indie gamer or a fan gamer. So, this is my own experience with indie games and fan game mates. So, indie gaming. You saw me do indie games before. I have played Tape to Tape. It is a sports game. And there is hockey in particular. I have played something called First Mansion. And I just did this recently because they just came out with the full game. This is an JRPG slash horror. Okay, those are my two indie games I have played recently. And let's talk about fan game mates. I actually have not. No experience right now. I want to get into them, but I have to figure out how to download them for you guys. Okay, so my first indie game, I have to go way back for this one, folks, because most of my time as a gamer has been in the AAA category or AAA category, or what they call the Nintendos, the Microsoft, and the Sony. Now, when it comes to like indie games, in terms of like, oh, Little Big Planet is actually not an indie game. I was gonna say Little Big Planet, but I don't think that's an indie game because that's made up by a higher up studio or mid-sized, I believe. So that's why I don't count that. So Tape to Tape is a hockey game. Curse Mansion is a JRPG horror. So my first indie game, I gotta go back to Curse Mansion. This was the first real one that I actually enjoyed when it comes to playing for you guys. Okay? Because it gives me an idea of what you can do with RPG Maker. I should have actually added that. Because RPG Maker allows you to make games as well. And automatically, because you're making the games that are considered, those are considered indie games automatically. Okay? And then you have other game engines like Unity. You have Unreal Engine. We also have Geodot. Game Maker Studio, I believe, is what it's called. And other game engines that you can play with. And Curse Mansion was the first one with RPG Maker that I played. And I use RPG Maker to make a game too. You just haven't seen it more because I'm doing a lot of content for you guys. But my point is, there's a lot of cool games you can make with RPG. There's a lot of cool games that you can play made in RPG Maker. And that's pretty neat. Okay? Now, we need to answer a question here. And I think you guys know my answer. However, I want to explain why. Are ROM hacks considered to be fan-made, indie, or neither? Before we go into my answer, let me define a ROM hack. ROM hack, by definition, is a game slash experience created by using the assets of the original game, or what they call ripping, aka ripping assets, to create the experience of a game made using the made using the a software. For example, Lunar Magic is used to create a ROM hack for Super Mario World. And by definition of ROM, ROM stands for Read Only Memory. It allows you to play a game that is already out, released, and cannot be edited, altered, or removed or deleted without the use of a third party software, i.e. Lunar Magic. So if a ROM hack is a game or experience played by using the assets of the original game, a ROM stands for read-only memory, which allows you to play the game as it was intended. It cannot be edited, altered, or deleted without the use of third-party software like Lunar Magic. So the question is, are ROM hacks considered fan-made, indie, or neither? My answer is neither, unfortunately. And here's why. Now, I can see why a lot of people would consider ROM hacks. A lot of people would consider it as a fan made, more fan made than indie, because fan made games are in there because you are a fan of a game and you want to make a game based on the fans. And a lot of people would consider ROM hacks to be fan made games based on that logic. However, there is a little bit of a caveat. Remember the definition of ROM, and remember how you're getting these assets. You are technically ripping the assets using a third-party software, in this case Lunar Magic, to create this experience or to create this ROM hack, like for Mario. Therefore, it's not considered to be an indie game for sure. Is it? And it's not going to be considered a fan-made game because you're really using the assets of Nintendo. So that is why my answer is neither. You are technically not making a fan-made game because of what I said earlier, because you are using a third-party software. For example, if I can type it correctly, example Lunar Magic, to create the experience for your audience to play at their own time. You are also not making an indie game because the assets that you are using come from a particular company. In this example, Nintendo. Now, the reason why there is an example, there is a reason why they are allowed now. The reason why ROM hacks are allowed is because Nintendo allows you, now not Nintendo, but the third party software allows you to create these experiences without getting in trouble. Here's the exception though. You are not allowed to sell the actual ROM hack. Okay? While you can make ROM hacks, that's fan ROM hacks, you are not allowed to sell said ROM hack due to copyright law. And since you are technically using the assets from that company, in this example, Nintendo, because Mario is owned by Nintendo. Okay? And I will tell you now, there is a court case that just happened where the website was in trouble because the person was selling the ROM hack on their website. You're not allowed to do that because that's Nintendo property. That's Nintendo IP. And from what I heard, excuse me, from what I heard in that case, the person has to pay up 30% of his salary each time, each paycheck. So imagine that. So you are allowed to create ROM hacks. That's not a problem. The problem lies when making money. You are not allowed because that is Nintendo IP and that is Nintendo property officially. Okay, so that's why my answer to the question of is a ROM hack considered an indie game, fan game, or neither? My answer is neither because of that idea. Now I would like to present to you a preview of next episode, and that is today's next episode is going to be the market competition of indie games. We'll be talking about our main bullet points for the next episode. We'll be talking about market competition, comp versus AAA games or AAA games, how the games are priced, especially on Steam. And we'll go over how to get your games out there via Steam, Game Jolt, and other sources. That's gonna be on our next official episode of Let's Talk IndieYuuki. And I have the articles that you have been seeing me play with during this episode. If you guys want the show notes, I'll be trying to link them through the Google Drive. But I do have a plan for Patreon and maybe YouTube memberships. So if you guys are interested in more indie games and more indie game development talk, make sure you guys subscribe today, and we'll see you on the next episode where we talk about marketing. Enjoy, and we'll see you guys next time. And don't forget to live on the indie side of gaming.